Imagine waking up one morning and realizing your life has been stolen not by circumstances, not by lack of talent, but by endless noise. Every scroll, every distraction, every opinion you absorb, without question has chipped away at your focus, your power, your potential. But what if today, right now, you decided to take it all back? What if you refuse to live for anyone else's approval, anyone else's expectation, anyone else's timeline? What if you finally locked in, silenced the chaos, and became the person you were born to be, the unstoppable version of yourself that's been waiting all along? When you finally get honest with yourself, you realize something powerful. Most people aren't failing because they lack talent, intelligence, opportunity. They're failing because they're drowning in noise. And the truth is, the noise isn't just outside, it's inside. The world today is louder than it has ever been. Your phone buzzes, your apps ping, your mind jumps between tasks, your environment pulls you in 1,000 directions, and you don't even notice the cost anymore because distraction has become normal. But normal doesn't mean healthy. Normal doesn't mean empowering. Normal just means everyone else is doing it and everyone else is stuck. You can't step into your greatness while you're scrolling away your purpose. You can't build a meaningful life if you give your energy to every notification that pops up. You can't hear your intuition, your vision, your inner calling if external noise is always speaking louder than your soul. Somewhere along the way, we traded presence for stimulation. We traded depth for speed. We traded intentional living for reactive habits. And we're wondering why we feel empty, unfulfilled, disconnected from who we truly are. But the moment you decide to silence the distractions, even for a little while, something incredible begins to happen. You start to notice your own thoughts again. You start to feel the pull towards something bigger. You remember the goals you set, the dreams you buried, the strength you forgot you had. You remember that there is a life waiting for you, a life you cannot touch until you step away from the noise that's been suffocating your potential. Think about what happens every time you try to focus on something that matters. Your attention splits. Your mind wanders. You jump to something else because distraction provides quick dopamine while growth requires patience. And that's how dreams die, not in dramatic failures, but in tiny interruptions repeated thousands of times. You weren't born to be distracted. You weren't built to be controlled by digital noise or emotional chaos around you. You were born to create, to progress, to expand, to become something powerful. But you can't do that with a mind constantly being hijacked by things that don't matter. Cutting the noise doesn't mean escaping life. It means reclaiming it. It means taking back ownership of your attention, your energy, your mental clarity. When was the last time you did something with your full presence? When was the last time you gave yourself the gift of undivided focus? When was the last time you spent time with yourself without reaching for something to distract you from yourself? This is where transformation begins. Not with a new plan, not with a new goal, not with a new strategy. It begins with silence, because silence is where truth lives. Silence is where you meet the real you, the version of you that isn't shaped by opinions, algorithms, or expectations. Silence reveals what you truly want, not what people expect you to want. And if you can't hear your own truth, you'll always follow someone else's path. When you learn to quiet the world, your inner world becomes louder. Your vision sharpens. Your priorities rearrange themselves. You realize how much time you've given to things that don't move your life forward. You realize how much of your identity was shaped by noise instead of intention. And you realize, maybe for the first time, that your life is too valuable to waste on distractions. And here's the shift. You start guarding your attention like it's sacred. You stop saying yes to everything that steals your focus. You begin to choose your environment with intention. You create space for deep work, deep rest, deep thinking, and deep growth. Because once you experience the power of clarity, you can never go back to the fog. Once you taste the strength that comes from presence, you can never go back to mindless distraction. Once you feel what it's like to move toward your goals with full focus, you realize how much potential you've been giving away piece by piece. Your life changes the moment you decide that your focus is worth protecting, that your peace is worth guarding, that your vision is worth prioritizing. You don't cut the noise because it's a productivity hack. You cut the noise because your destiny requires it. You cut the noise because your future self is begging you to stop feeding your attention to meaningless things. You cut the noise because the person you were born to be is buried under layers of distractions that were never yours to carry in the first place. This isn't about perfection. It's about intention. It's about taking one step away from chaos and one step closer to clarity. One step away from noise and one step closer to purpose. One step away from distractions and one step closer to who you truly are. Cut the noise and watch your life open. When you look at people who create extraordinary results, real, lasting, undeniable results, there's a pattern you'll see every single time. They know how to lock in. They know how to enter a state where there is no hesitation, no fragmentation, no half effort. They have trained their mind and their nervous system to commit fully to what matters, to shut out everything else, and to operate with intensity, presence, and purpose. And the truth is, this ability isn't reserved for a select few. It's not some rare gift. It's a skill, a muscle, a habit, and every single person in this room has the capacity to build it. Locking in is about more than focus. It's about immersion. It's about becoming so present in what you're doing that everything else fades away, not because you force it to, but because your mission becomes louder than your distractions. It's the difference between dabbling in your dreams and devoting yourself to them. It's the difference between wishing and working, between hoping and becoming. Think about the moments in your life when you were truly locked in. Maybe it was in sports, maybe in your craft, maybe in a moment of crisis when you had no choice but to be fully present. You felt something powerful, didn't you? There was no noise, no fear, no doubt, just pure action, absolute clarity, a sense that you were tapped into something deeper, something stronger. That state is not random, it's not accidental. It's accessible anytime you condition yourself to return to it. But here's the problem. Most people won't lock in because they don't understand the cost of being unfocused. They think distraction just slows them down. No, distraction disconnects you from who you could be. When you're constantly pulled in different directions, you lose your edge, you lose your energy, you lose your drive, and you start living your life at 40%, 50%, maybe 60% of your real capacity. You get so used to operating below your potential that you start believing that's just who you are, but it's not. It's just a habit, and habits can change. When you lock in, everything changes. Your productivity skyrockets, your emotional state elevates, your confidence grows because you see yourself following through. You feel momentum, you feel progress. And progress is one of the most powerful human needs. It feeds your spirit, it rewires your beliefs. It tells you, I can do this. And when you start believing you can, you start becoming unstoppable. Locking in requires a few things. First, you must have something worth locking into, a mission, a goal, a vision that wakes something inside you. If you're not clear on what you want, your mind will always wander. If you're not emotionally connected to your purpose, you'll always chase distractions because distractions require nothing from you. Purpose demands your full presence. Purpose forces you to grow. Purpose challenges you. And when you rise to that challenge, you discover strength you didn't know you had. Second, locking in requires a standard, not a hope. Not a wish, a standard for how you show up, a standard that says, when I work, I work. When I train. When I create, I create. I don't have to do it. I don't scatter my energy. I don't negotiate with my excuses because excuses don't build your future, commitment does. And the moment you start holding yourself to a higher standard, your entire identity begins to shift. You stop being someone who tries. You become someone who follows through. And that changes everything. Third, locking in requires emotional discipline. You can't wait to feel motivated. You can't wait for the perfect moment. You can't wait for inspiration to magically show up. You create the state you need. You generate the energy. You choose your internal environment instead of reacting to the external one. That's power. That's freedom. That's ownership. And the more you practice generating the state you need, the faster you can access it. That's how you become unstoppable. And finally, locking in requires repetition. You don't enter a peak state once and expect it to last forever. You condition it. You build it like a muscle. You train your brain. When it's time to work, we go all in. And eventually, locking in becomes automatic. It becomes natural. It becomes your default mode. While everyone else is distracted, you're executing. While everyone else is overwhelmed, you're in flow. While everyone else is waiting for the right time, you're creating results that make time irrelevant. There's incredible power inside you waiting to be awakened. Focused power, creative power, strategic power. The kind of power that can reshape your life, but you won't access it until you learn to lock in. Not occasionally, but consistently. Not when it feels easy, but when it feels necessary. Not because someone expects it from you, but because you've decided that your future deserves the best of you, not the leftovers of your attention. Lock in and watch everything around you rise to meet the standard you set. There comes a moment in every person's life where they have to decide what voice they're going to follow, the voice of the world or the voice within, and most people never make that choice consciously. They drift, they absorb, they react, they shape their lives around what other people think, what other people expect, what other people approve of. They chase validation like it's oxygen, never realizing that the more they rely on it, the weaker they become. Because external validation is a trap. It feels good for a moment, but it never lasts. It never fills you. It never strengthens you. It keeps you dependent, uncertain, and always questioning if you're enough. But there's another way to live, a way built on discipline, not approval, a way built on self-respect instead of people-pleasing, a way where you stop trying to prove yourself and start building yourself, a way where the person you become matters more than the opinions you collect. That shift changes everything. When you build inner discipline, you stop negotiating with your weaknesses. You stop lowering your standards for convenience. You stop letting your emotions dictate your actions. Discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you're capable of becoming. It's the internal contract you make with yourself that says, I follow through, I show up, I don't wait to feel ready. I don't need applause. I don't need permission. That's power. That's freedom. That's identity. And here's the thing. Most people think discipline is punishment. They think it's rigid, restrictive, exhausting. But real discipline isn't about forcing yourself. It's about respecting yourself. It's not about limitation. It's about alignment. It's choosing what matters most over what feels comfortable right now. It's reminding yourself that your future is worth the discomfort, the sacrifice, the patience. Discipline is the highest form of self. Love because it does what your feelings don't want to do. You can become who your soul knows you can be. When you operate from discipline instead of validation, you stop performing for the world. You stop bending your truth to fit in. You stop diluting your potential to keep others comfortable. You start acting from your own standards instead of the crowd's expectations. And that's when real confidence begins, not the kind built on compliments, but the kind built on competence, the kind built on consistency. The kind built on knowing that when you give yourself a command, you follow it. Confidence comes from keeping promises to yourself. Think about it. How many times have you said you'd start something and didn't? How many times have you made a commitment to yourself only to break it the moment it got inconvenient? Every time you do that, you weaken your identity. You signal to your mind, my word doesn't matter. But the opposite is also true. Every time you follow through, even in small ways, you strengthen your identity. You teach yourself when I say something, it happens, and that becomes a powerful foundation. Discipline also gives you clarity. When you're not chasing approval, you stop comparing yourself to everyone else. You stop measuring your worth through likes, comments, or applause. You stop needing people to understand your path. Some people won't. Some people can't. That's okay, they don't need to. The vision was given to you, not them. Your job isn't to convince them. Your job is to commit to the path that was placed inside you. And the moment you take your power back from other people's opinions, something remarkable happens. You become more authentic, more grounded, more intentional. You make decisions based on your values, not your insecurities. You pursue goals that matter to you, not goals that will impress others. You live from the inside out instead of outside in. And that's when you unlock fulfillment, purpose, and alignment. But none of this happens without discipline. Without the willingness to say no to what's easy so you can say yes to what's meaningful. Without the courage to sit with discomfort instead of escaping it. Without the strength to keep going when no one is clapping. That's the test. That's the moment where champions are made, when no one sees, no one praises, no one knows. Because discipline is built in the dark. And what you build in the dark is what the world will eventually see in the light. People often ask, how do I become that person? How do I live with that kind of strength? You start small. You keep your promises. You set standards. You stop giving your power away to the opinions of people who aren't responsible for your future. You train yourself to do the things you know you need to do, especially when you don't feel like it, because that's where transformation lies. In the moments you choose growth over comfort, the life you want won't be built by who you've been. It will be built by the disciplined version of you, the one who doesn't wait to be chosen, noticed, or approved of, the one who chooses themselves every single day. Discipline over validation, because your future depends on it. Most people live their entire lives believing they're defined by their past. They carry old labels, old failures, old mistakes like chains that were never meant to hold them. They let other people's opinions shape their identity, and they convince themselves that the circumstances they were born in to determine who they will become. But that is not truth. None of that defines you. None of that determines your potential. You are not the sum of your setbacks, and you are not a product of the limitations other people have tried to impose on you. You are not who the world says you are. You are the person you choose to become. And the moment you understand that, everything changes. Redefining who you are starts with understanding that your identity is flexible. It is not fixed. It is not a permanent sculpture carved by fate or circumstance. It is clay, and you hold the tools to shape it. Too many people wander through life wearing someone else's version of themselves, the version that society, family, or circumstance has handed them, because it feels safe, familiar, and unchallenging. But safety does not equal growth. Familiarity does not equal fulfillment. And when you cling to the identity given to you by others, you shrink, you compromise, and you sell your potential short. Ask yourself this: who have you allowed yourself to be up until now? And who could you become if you refuse to let the past dictate your future? This is where transformation begins. Not when conditions are perfect. Not when other people approve. Not when fear subsides. Transformation begins when you take responsibility for your identity and declare, I am not who I was. I am not who others think I am. I am the person I am choosing to become. That declaration is the spark that ignites power inside you. The power that allows you to step into your potential and begin acting from possibility rather than limitation. Redefining yourself requires courage. It requires honesty. It means confronting the lies you've been telling yourself about who you are and questioning the stories that have kept you small. It means recognizing the patterns you've adopted, the excuses you've believed, and the roles you've allowed others to assign to you. And when you do that, when you strip away the false layers, you discover your true potential waiting underneath. It's not hidden. It's always been there, but it is dormant until you take control of your narrative and consciously decide to become someone new. One of the biggest obstacles to redefining is fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of stepping into uncharted territory. But here's the truth: fear is never the enemy. Fear is the signal that you are about to grow. Fear tells you you are leaving the comfortable and stepping into the extraordinary. And the moment you move forward despite fear, the moment you refuse to let it control your decisions, you reclaim your power. That's when you begin to truly create the identity that aligns with your dreams and your purpose. Redefining who you are also requires vision. You must see clearly the person you want to become, the habits, the mindset, the discipline, the energy, the contribution. If you can't picture it, you can't reach it. The mind needs a blueprint to build something new. You must hold that vision every day, reinforce it, and act in ways that are consistent with it. And every time you take an action that aligns with that vision, no matter how small, you reinforce a new identity. You are no longer the person of the past. You are the architect of your future. It also requires shedding toxic influences that reinforce the old version of yourself. People who doubt you, environments that limit you, and routines that weaken you, they all must be removed. Identity is not built in chaos. It is built in clarity, consistency, and intention. If you continue to feed the old patterns, you will continue to live the old life. But if you feed the new patterns, nurture the new habits, and take bold action consistent with the person you want to become, you will transform in ways that surprise even yourself. Redefining yourself is not a one-time event. It is a continuous process. It's waking up every day and asking, who do I want to be today? How will I show up? What story will I tell myself in the world? And with each conscious choice, each deliberate action, you reinforce the identity that serves your highest potential. Every choice matters, every action compounds, and every day you have the opportunity to step closer to the version of yourself that you were born to become. You were not born to be a reflection of the past. You were not born to fit someone else's definition. You were born to rise, to evolve, and to become extraordinary. And the moment you take ownership of your identity, redefine your story, and refuse to be limited by circumstance, you step into a power that has been waiting inside you all along. Decide today, I am not my past. I am the person I am choosing to be. Most people get trapped in the idea that success is about the outcome. They believe that achieving the goal, hitting the milestone, or earning the recognition is the moment that will change everything. And yet, when they reach it, it often feels empty. Why? Because they never fell in love with the process. They were chasing the result, not becoming the person capable of producing it. The truth is, the outcome is nothing more than a reflection of who you are becoming along the way. The person you are in pursuit of the goal is what creates the results. If you try to shortcut that journey, you will always feel incomplete, unsatisfied, and frustrated. The first step to embracing the process is understanding that growth doesn't happen in a single moment. It happens in small, consistent actions repeated over time. Every choice you make, every action you take, every habit you build compounds. It's not the giant leaps that define your life. It's the daily, seemingly insignificant steps that move you closer to your potential. And yet, so many people ignore this truth. They want transformation without effort, change without struggle, and results without commitment. But life doesn't work that way. The journey is the teacher. The process is the prize. And the more you commit to it, the more extraordinary you become. Committing to the process requires patience. It requires a willingness to be uncomfortable, to face resistance, and to endure when progress feels slow or invisible. Most people quit because they haven't yet seen the result they expected. They look at their efforts and say, this isn't working, forgetting that every great achievement in history was built on a foundation of persistence, repetition, and resilience. Success is not a single event. It is a series of choices made over and over, day after day, in the face of doubt and distraction. The person who commits to the process knows this, and they keep showing up. They understand that mastery is not a destination. It is a continuous journey, and every step forward matters. Falling in love with the process also shifts your focus from external validation to internal growth. When you chase outcomes, you are constantly comparing yourself to others, measuring your worth by results, and allowing circumstances to control your emotions. But when you embrace the process, your focus moves inward. You start asking, am I improving? Am I learning? Am I becoming stronger, wiser, more capable? And with that shift, your energy changes. You stop being a slave to comparison, and you start becoming the person you were meant to be. The process becomes your playground for growth, and every challenge becomes an opportunity to strengthen your character, your discipline, and your resilience. Another crucial part of committing to the process is embracing failure as feedback. When your identity is tied to the outcome, failure feels devastating. It shakes your confidence, it paralyzes you, and it makes you question your worth. But when your identity is tied to the process, failure becomes data. It becomes information about what works, what doesn't, and how you can improve. It is an essential part of mastery. Every mistake, every setback, every challenge is an invitation to refine your skills, deepen your understanding, and grow stronger. The person who commits to the process doesn't fear failure. They leverage it. They learn from it. They use it as a springboard to their next level of performance. Committing to the process also requires total presence. You can't fall in love with the journey while your mind is scattered, distracted, or focused on what's next. You have to be fully engaged with each moment, each action, each step. When you are present, you notice opportunities that others miss. You see solutions that others overlook. You gain clarity that allows you to act decisively and intelligently. Presence turns repetition into mastery, and mastery transforms effort into results. The person who locks into the process today is the person who will achieve extraordinary outcomes tomorrow, not because they chased results, but because they became the type of person who produces them. And here is the most important truth: results are inevitable when you commit to becoming the person capable of achieving them. You cannot control every external factor, but you can control the effort, the focus, the learning, and the discipline you invest in yourself. When you fall in love with the process, you stop obsessing over what might happen, and you start showing up fully for what you can control. You start building skills, resilience, and strength. You start shaping your identity in alignment with the life you want to create, and eventually the results you once chased will catch up with the person you become. The journey is not a side path to your destiny. It is your destiny. Every practice, every challenge, every small step forward is molding you into someone extraordinary. Stop waiting for the finish line to define your worth. Stop depending on outcomes to give you validation. Start committing to the process, start embracing the journey, and fall in love with becoming the person capable of achieving everything you desire. Master the process and the results will follow. Every person in this room has a calling, not a vague idea, not a fleeting thought, not something you chase because it looks impressive. Your calling is the deep, burning pull inside you that whispers, there is more. You were born for more, and most people never hear it because they are too busy living for other people's expectations, chasing distractions and hiding behind comfort. They settle for lives that are safe, convenient, and predictable, thinking that's enough. But it isn't. You were born for something extraordinary, and the world is waiting for the version of you that you have yet to unleash. The first step to stepping into your calling is realizing that it is yours and yours alone. No one else can do it the way you can. Your combination of experiences, strengths, and perspective is unique. No one else has walked your path, felt your pain, or developed your capacity to overcome challenges. That uniqueness is your power. And the moment you understand that the world needs your contribution and that you are the only one who can deliver it, the fear of stepping forward begins to lose its grip. Your calling doesn't require permission. It requires courage. It requires commitment. It requires the willingness to risk comfort for significance. Many people never step into their calling because they are afraid of failure, afraid of judgment, afraid of the unknown. They convince themselves that they are too small, too inexperienced, too unprepared. But the truth is, growth begins when you take the first step, not when you feel ready. You don't need permission from the world to pursue your purpose. You need permission from yourself. You need to decide right now that you will no longer hide. You will no longer shrink. You will no longer let fear dictate your choices. You will step into the version of yourself that was always meant to make an impact. Stepping into your calling requires presence, focus, and courage. It requires that you clear away the noise, that you lock in on what matters, that you refuse to be distracted by every little setback, criticism, or challenge that comes your way. Your calling is not a casual pursuit. It demands your full engagement, your energy, and your heart. It calls for persistence, discipline, and resilience. And when you meet it with that kind of commitment, you begin to experience the extraordinary flow of life responding to your readiness. Doors open, opportunities appear, and your potential starts to catch up with your vision. Your calling also requires alignment with your values. You cannot live someone else's dream and claim it as your own. You cannot pursue a path that violates who you are and expect fulfillment. The true power of stepping into your calling comes from living in harmony with what matters most to you, what excites you, what challenges you, what motivates you to wake up every morning ready to give your best. When your actions align with your deepest values, energy flows naturally, your work feels meaningful, your presence becomes magnetic, and your impact grows exponentially. It is also important to understand that stepping into your calling is not about instant recognition or immediate results. It's about commitment over time. It's about consistency. It's about building the skills, mindset, and character that enable you to create lasting influence. Every small step you take toward your calling compounds, every decision to show up, every action to move closer to your purpose, every moment you refuse to settle for mediocrity strengthens your capacity to make the impact you were born to make. Your legacy is created not in grand gestures alone, but in the accumulation of intentional, courageous choices made every day. And perhaps the most profound truth is this: your calling is not just for you. It is for everyone your life touches. The gifts you were born with, the unique experiences you have lived, the wisdom you have gained, these are not yours to hoard. They are meant to be shared, expressed, and multiplied. By stepping fully into your calling, you not only transform your life, you transform the lives of others. You become a source of inspiration, a catalyst for change, and a living example of what is possible when someone refuses to settle for less than who they were born to be. So many people spend their lives waiting for the right moment, waiting for perfect conditions, waiting for confidence to arrive. But the moment will never arrive unless you create it. You create it by showing up, by choosing courage over comfort, by embracing your potential with relentless determination. You create it by deciding in this very moment that you will no longer live small, that you will no longer hide your light, that you will no longer give your energy away to distractions, doubts, or limitations. Your time is now, your life is now, and the world is waiting for the full expression of who you are. Step into your calling, and the world will rise to meet the version of you that you were born to be.